Hogwarts Legacy is finally out. After countless delays and false content promises and a bunch of controversy, what state is the game in now? First, before I answer that question, I do love reviewing movies as my primary thing, but I wanted to start doing some video game reviews too, and I figured no better game to start with than probably the biggest game of the year before Zelda comes out, Hogwarts Legacy. Harry Potter was the first book series that I got into as a kid, and I've been a huge Harry Potter fan ever since. You can see the movies right behind me. But for a while now, between the Cursed Child book and the Fantastic Beasts movies coming out, it feels like they can't recapture the magic of Harry Potter again. And with J.K. Rowling trying her best to stir controversy and ruin her reputation while changing the Harry Potter characters, I think most fans have been frustrated for a while now. But finally, for Harry Potter fans, this age of suffering, this drought has finally come to an end, because Hogwarts Legacy is a great game. It's not perfect, it has its issues, but especially for Harry Potter fans, it is the best Harry Potter game ever made. The world itself is absolutely stunning. It is super detailed, the graphics are gorgeous. Hogwarts Castle itself is like a picture out of the movie. It captures the aura, the detail, everything you expect to be in a game like this. The lighting is gorgeous and warm when the sun's out. Places like the Forbidden Forest have a great color tone to them that really give you the feeling that the movie did. And Hogwarts itself is lit perfectly. It literally looks like the movie. That was refreshing to see, because I feel like as lighting gets better, games have just been getting brighter. When I was younger playing PS2 or Xbox 360 games, it felt like games weren't afraid to be a little bit dark and gritty looking. I mean, look at Black Ops 1 when you did zombies. I remember being in my mom's living room playing these games as a kid with the sun shining through the window, and half the time you'd have trouble seeing the games because they were so dark. But it feels like as lighting engines get better and better, and there's ray tracing and all this stuff, they're getting worse at creating an atmosphere and a vibe. But Hogwarts Legacy has found a way to do that in the Unreal Engine, and I'm not sure how, but it's the best lighting I've ever seen in that engine. Just like the other aspects of the game, it does such a good job of staying true to its fans and its source material, something that other games and other franchises can't seem to figure out. And I loved how it evolved over time. It seemed like there was always more to do at the castle as I got further in the game, because at the beginning of the game I did so much exploration that I felt like I had exhausted most of the things there, and then different things pop up, like you learn a new spell or a different secret area pops up, and all of a sudden it's like a new game again. And the world around the castle evolves as well. The seasons change and affect the atmosphere throughout your year at Hogwarts. It feels very authentic, just like the movies. And the map is vast. There's so much to do outside of the castle. I found myself spending a lot of time in Hogsmeade and the other areas around the world doing the different challenges as they appeared. It's every Harry Potter fan's dream come true. And even if you're not a Harry Potter fan, I can still see you having a great time exploring the world and just being blown away by how gorgeous it is. I only really have one issue with the world because it's borderline perfect, but my one issue is that a lot of the challenges that are meant to make the world feel a little bit more alive really don't give you much. There are these things called Merlin trials that are really important to the game because they give you more inventory space. So I thought that the other challenges would be similar to that and have crucial things I needed to get, but it ended up being more cosmetic, which was really disappointing for me because I'm not a huge cosmetics and appearance guy in these games. I just don't find a lot of satisfaction in doing a lot of tasks to make my character look differently. I've never been that type of player. I can see for some people that's probably not an issue. I guess just personally, I wish it was a little bit more like Breath of the Wild, where the things you're finding when you're exploring are a little bit more practical. Like maybe you have more melee weapon space or more shield space, or you can carry more bows, or you can accidentally trigger some epic event to happen that gives you an awesome piece of gear or some functionality that you didn't have before. I just don't think Hogwarts Legacy gives you a whole lot of reason to go explore beyond your main and side quests unless you're really into cosmetics. Now, that one small gripe aside, the biggest question is, how's the spell casting? What's it like to be a wizard in this world? And for a Harry Potter fan, or for pretty much any player, I think it's going to be super satisfying. There aren't that many spells, so I can see some people complaining about that, but the spells that are in the game are so well integrated into the world, it doesn't feel like I have too many spells that don't have a whole lot of uses. And I've been surprised many times when I used a spell in a certain situation and it actually worked and it didn't seem like the intended use. And And that's really pleasantly surprising when they think of that. It feels very detailed and very thought about how you'd use your spells in the world. There's also a lot of spells that are just a core component to the gameplay that you unlock over time, and they don't take up a spell slot, so it's more of a utility. And I found a lot of those to be really fun when I realized I had them. I had to go in and actually see that I had those. So there's more spells than it seems like in the game. The really nice thing is that a lot of the utility spells also can be used in combat. So you have this whole list of fire spells and curses and things you can use in combat, but you can also just use Levioso and make someone float in the air so you can hit them with spells and they can't do anything. And that was a really good time as well. It felt like I could finally do all the things I wanted to do in a Harry Potter game, and the spells look amazing too. The graphics are just so stunningly good, and it feels like there's real weight behind the spells you cast, and not in an OP way, but with real utility. It feels like you have to overcome obstacles, and if you use your head, you actually find uses for a lot of your spells. Even just how the game puts you frequently in dark corridors, I found myself using Lumos a lot, and it's a small spell, it's not super exciting, but it makes you feel like a real wizard because you're walking around using a spell just to see. If you remember the old PS2 Harry Potter games, they did a horrible job of this. They barely could recreate Hogwarts because of the technology at the time, but the spellcasting was also lackluster. You could never do the things that you wanted to do so badly because you saw Harry do them in the movies. As for combat specifically, I think most people are going to be fine with it. It is very fluid. I haven't had any issues with it. The spells are very satisfying to cast. It's also very balanced. It doesn't feel like anything's too easy or too challenging. And I was playing on just the normal mode for the average player. And there is a nice variety of enemy types. You can fight anything from monsters in the Forbidden Forest to a random animal to a dark wizard. But even with the game doing so much right, I couldn't help feel like the combat was a little bit rudimentary. And that doesn't really have anything to do with the gameplay itself. It's very fluid, like I said, and it looks great and it's super fun. So what's the issue? I guess my biggest thing is really with the controls. You can tell that it's made for a console. You have 4 spells that can be active at a time, and then you can use talent points to unlock more sections of spells. So you can have 16 spells equipped at a time. The only issue though is you have to quickly remember which spells were on which section of the D-pad, and when you're in the middle of combat, I could never find myself being successful with it. And it made it a little unsatisfying because I'm learning all these cool new spells, but I can only really use 4, and if I'm lucky, maybe 8 if I can remember to switch between 2. And I think it was a little extra frustrating for me because I play on PC, and I have a Razer Naga with the 12 buttons that you use for MMOs, because MMOs are the same way. You have a lot of abilities, but they go all the way across your number pad, and I wish that at least for PC players, they gave you the option of having all your spells on a number pad like that, so I could use easily 12 different spells on my mouse. It sounds like a little thing, but after 30 hours of playing and ending up knowing every spell in the book, it got really annoying at times. I also have to mention that while you're spellcasting, the character moves around so fluidly. There's not a lot of games where it feels like the character is sort of moving on their own, like they have a mind of their own or something. Sometimes I'd cast a spell that was a little bit behind where my character was facing, and he'd lean behind him and shoot the spell kind of backwards. I mean, it's little details like that that made the game feel just fluid overall. But then it's equally as jarring when you're flying around and you're used to this fluid experience, and then you go to land your griffin and it's hard because there's error messages popping up saying, well, you can't land right here. Little things like that, or like turning around on your broom, kind of like in The Witcher 3 when you're riding around on Roach and there's little control issues that happen. It reminded me of an older game like that. Despite that, I really enjoyed the way that you learn new spells. You meet with other students that will teach you spells that maybe you shouldn't know. You also go to class and learn spells the legitimate way too, and it felt like it mixed it up really well. Kind of like your Harry Potter in his years at Hogwarts, where he went to class, he did some crazy stuff he probably shouldn't have done, and learned some things maybe he wasn't supposed to, but it was a great mix of all of it. All of that made for some really fun side quests that made the game for me. They're really well fleshed out. They almost feel like main story quests, and there's one quest line in particular with this kid you meet at Hogwarts named Sebastian. That quest line was so much fun. Whoever wrote that needs a raise. Every time I saw that I got a new quest in that quest chain, I went and did it right away. It was just a blast. It was a great way to learn new and really fun spells, and the reason I keep harping on that is because it was so good it overshadowed the main story. The main story did start with so much promise. Just wait until you hit the first cutscene. I was like, man, alright, I am in, I'm ready for this. It quickly degraded into a really boring story about goblins and wizards. I think I literally told you the entire storyline just now, and there's really not that much more to it. It's so boring and uninspired. I don't know who thought that's a great main story for Hogwarts Legacy, but it caused me to kind of dread continuing the main story because the side quests were so much fun. I didn't see a reason to go torture myself and continue this dumb storyline. In all fairness, it is serviceable, and I don't think it's going to ruin the game because there's so much to this game. I don't think a main story not being the best could ruin it. Chances are you're going to have a great time exploring, spending a ton of time doing things you don't even need to do, having fun with the side quests, and forgetting the main story's even there for a little while until you return to it as a means to unlocking more exciting things. But I can't stress enough that even though I have these complaints with the game, it should show how great of a game it is that I can say, overall, it is still fantastic. It comes down to the world and exploration and spellcasting and all the things I mentioned before, but it also has a lot of games inside of this game. You can find beasts in the wild and capture them and care for them. You can customize the room of requirement to meet your requirements and do whatever you want to do with it, and the customization was insane. You can ride a broom and go make friends with the shopkeeper and try to keep upgrading your broom and get it faster and faster. You can brew potions. You can plant different plants like mandrake roots that actually have combat uses. The game really shines in all the little things, all the details, all the small activities you can do that makes the world feel more alive. And I think it makes up for how much the world is actually empty. And if you do care about cosmetics, I can see you not feeling like the world's empty at all because there's so much to do if you care about that. I have over 35 hours on the game right now, and I'm just now finishing the main story, and I don't even think I had to do that. There was still so much I could have done in the game. And don't skip out on the sound. I know a lot of PC players like me like to play with our headphones off sometimes, or we're talking in Discord, but this game deserves our full attention. The music obviously is amazing, but there's voice acting for almost every character. I'd be hard pressed to think of one conversation that wasn't voice acted, and voice acted really well. I can only imagine the hours of voice recording to make this game. It's just such an impressive feat. It is a true AAA title, one that I think we've been waiting for. It's been a long time since I think there's been a game that's just immersed me so much, and I've had so much good to say about it. Open world games and games in general have just been so disappointing for me lately. It feels like ever since Breath of the Wild. But Hogwarts Legacy sets you loose to do whatever you want in a truly magical feeling world, and it's a return to form for AAA titles as far as I'm concerned. Overall, guys, I can't recommend Hogwarts Legacy enough to Harry Potter fans and people that just love RPGs. This game will sweep you up and spit you out 35 hours later, trust me. Anyway, thank you guys as always for watching and the growth on this channel. Thank you so much. Let me know if you like this game review, and maybe I'll keep doing them from here on out. Not as a full-time thing, because I don't play every game that comes out, but just for big games that I'm waiting for. Anyway, take care. See ya.